is there a way to redesign research for acupuncture that is still going to be accepted by researchers that doesn't necessarily rely on these traditional methods?
There are people working towards, they call it the N1 research, where you stack a lot of single cases who are just one person. So that's why they call it N1 researches. And making a way to make that count as well. And there are other ways to do the statistics. There's a Bayesian statistics. I'm not really into them, but I know from a colleague who's into homeopathy, where they have the same difficulty of the double-blind randomized, although it's much easier in homeopathy than it is in, although constitutional homeopathy, then you said you are with the same problem. You can't do that double-blind or randomized.
Right.
When you do the homeopathy on a clinical basis, for headaches on the left side we give this, and headaches on the right side we give that, what we call clinical homeopathy, then you can do the double-blind randomized researches. But there's a problem where these three professors are not talking about, that we see in homeopathy we have 1,600 double-blind randomized trials, and they're still saying there's no evidence.
Right.
So we have to work on our credibility towards outside of our own bubble.
Right.
But the forces keeping us out and keeping us locked away are very strong. So that's why all three professors were saying, yeah, we have to do more double-blind researches, and we have to do more evidence. But it will be difficult.
But even the research that is there, that has been performed in this gold standard, is not being recognized. So like you say, getting it published in journals that actually hold some weight, would be one way to have that.
You've separated into two categories, right? The clinical double-blind studies, and one is the mechanisms of action or research on physiology, which I like that you make that differentiation. And I'm wondering to what extent there is value in trying to link mechanisms of action that are relatable from other fields to the field of auricular, and how that could be done.
Yeah, that's what Professor Alamy is doing. He is a neurologist, and when you have lessons of him, it's very much about neurology, about how the brainstem, where the ear has centers in this reticular formation. And that's how he explains for a neurologist logical that acupuncture works. That lowers the threshold. And I think that's a good way of working around it, because those who are in medicine say, okay, it makes sense for them, so then it works. So that's the same what we do in our education. When we start educating people, we start educating them from out the neurology. And that's true, but it's only one way of looking. There are very much windows of looking at how a human body works. But when we would start with chakras or energy fields or that sort of things, most academical schools people would say, now they're getting out of their head. It's not real science anymore.
Right.
So we have to introduce it gently to teach them that there is neurology, and that is true, but there are also other ways of looking at it. And that gives an extra dimension in how you can look at how a person functions and how he's put together.
Well, it's really interesting that you mentioned these windows, neurology, physiology, with which to look at what's being done and from different fields. And I think just as there was an inflection point, like you mentioned, for research in acupuncture, perhaps to support insurance payments that there might be the next inflection point in the field of bioelectric medicine, a medicine where pharma is investing to provide devices that do the very thing that acupuncturists have been doing for thousands of years, but now they can sell a device that does that.
Yeah, that's also a development where this electrical stimulation comes in. In neurology, they use a TENS, and it's only a mild modification from a TENS. But when I tried this way here in Holland to get it, our way of working into it, then it appeared that all the insurance companies had their own TENS suppliers, and you couldn't come in between it.
That gets complicated.
But there are ways to get our fingers in between it, but it's difficult. Yes, but there are ways. Yeah.
And also from a practitioner perspective, how much more accurate and precise we are with the vase, with the Nogier pulse. The accuracy that we have is far greater than any kind of like device that just sits on the ear.
Yeah, that's true. But when a patient wears a TENS, I take the pulse of Nogier and I look which frequency is best for them. So I tune the TENS for them.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's finding each other. And, working with what's available. And this electrical way of working with the body, the bioelectricity, I think there's a great future for that. To get the public behind you, we need more evidence. That will be put under the carpet, because when you can put a needle in the ear and the pain is gone, so the one selling medicines doesn't want us to know that it works.
Yeah.
So and they've got a lot of money. They to do all kinds of advertisements or how do you call it, lobbyist work.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to get against it.
Yeah, and that's another obstacle that maybe we hadn't really mentioned previously, in detail is of course the lobbying and financial backing and efforts that the pharmaceutical industry has, that if you think about it, it's not really necessarily in their best interest for acupuncture research to thrive. And so given the obstacles that randomized control trials and sham acupuncture kind of poses, we have some ideas, of course, like through neurology and physiology, measuring people's pain before and after, with, as you say, the N1 studies of this is one person's experience. And if we get enough of those, together that are similar, then it does show something. And then the other, of course, is like what you mentioned, David Olimi had done. I think the first one with functional MRI was in 2002 when he did the one with the thumb. And I think he's done a few since then as well. But using functional MRI to show clearly that there's a change in the brain when you stimulate ear, that kind of research perhaps is one of the answers to how to move forward, but outside of the model that's been created by the pharmaceutical companies.
When I talk about patients about these things, they say it works, and that's why I come. And science, they say then you should eat no meat, then you should eat meat, then you do this, then you do this. A lot of people are not trusting science anymore.
Yeah.
And as Yves Bouton said, only there's half of the science that's published that there is something wrong with it. Then it's really right that people are thinking that way. So the general public, the best way to reach them is just do good work, and it will sell itself.